While Elvis's family struggled, a man called the Colonel was doing well as a snowman. He told Elvis that he had a lot of talent worth $1 million, but with his help, Elvis would make $1 million too. The Colonel became Elvis's manager and got 25% of his earnings. In 1955, Elvis earned $25,000, but by the end of 1956, with the Colonel managing him, Elvis made $282,000. The Colonel said that being nice to people wasn't important if you were going to keep rising in success. And that's what happened. Elvis became more and more successful, earning $1 million and more, reaching heights no entertainer had reached before. Becoming famous and rich like Elvis doesn't just happen because of talent and looks. After 1955, Elvis's money and fame grew quickly. He didn't want to be rich or famous, but he wanted to support his family. He hired people from his hometown who were also poor like him and provided for them too. He also started to employ his family members. Over time, he helped around 20 family members at once, with many living at his home, Graceland. Elvis felt especially responsible for his mom and dad, who had struggled when he was young. He was happy to be able to help them now that he was successful. Elvis saw himself as someone who needed to take care of his family first and then be an artist. That's why he stayed with Colonel Tom Parker, even though another manager might have been better for his music career. Elvis wanted to help his mom, dad, and other poor family members by earning money and breaking the cycle of poverty they were stuck in. His family had struggled for generations with losing land and opportunities. By the time Elvis became famous, he knew he was changing things for his family financially. He hired Colonel Tom Parker to handle the money side of things so he could focus on performing and getting better at what he did. Elvis cared about providing for his parents, not just making money. Colonel Tom Parker said, "Elvis did his part. I did mine." As Elvis became more famous, he worked very hard and performed in many places. In 1955, he played in 117 cities and towns, only leaving the South twice. When 1956 came, he became very famous across the country, but this also meant a busy schedule that made him tired. He even had to go to the hospital. This happened again in the 1970s. Elvis worked very hard, and his cousin Gene Smith said he pushed himself and others as much as they could. Elvis once said that he might be doing something else if his fame went away. But in 1956, his fame not only took away his privacy, it also brought many good things. That year was a big change for America, and Elvis Presley was the one who made it happen. In January, Elvis released his first big song with RCA called Heartbreak Hotel. People all over the country started to hear about him after he appeared on a TV show called The Dorsey Brothers Stage Show. Before this, Elvis was only famous in the South, but now everyone was discovering him. In those days, popular singers were Perry Como, Rosemary Clooney, and others. Elvis was very different from them, and his music appealed to the younger generation. Some of his biggest songs in 1956 were Heartbreak Hotel, Don't Be Cruel, Hound Dog, I Want You, I Need You, I Love You, and Love Me Tender. RCA took a chance and spent $35,000 on Elvis. Turned out to be a great investment. In his first year with them, they sold 12.5 million singles and 2.75 million albums. His song Heartbreak Hotel was the first to sell over 1 million copies in just 8 weeks. Another song, Hound Dog with Don't Be Cruel, on the other side, sold 11 million copies in a year. A writer named Eddie Condon said that Elvis, a boy from Tupelo, Mississippi, might become the biggest music sensation ever. He compared Elvis's impact to that of famous singers like Bing Crosby, Benny Goodman, and Frank Sinatra, saying that Elvis's influence was much greater than theirs. Elvis became very famous, and many young women loved him. In the first half of 1956, he performed in 122 shows. After a concert in Florida, he collapsed and was taken to the hospital because he was extremely tired. The doctor told him to slow down, but Elvis left the hospital after just 12 hours because he had lots of promises to keep and commitments to honor. He didn't want to disappoint his fans. Elvis didn't want people to know how tired he was, so he told his friends that he faked the collapse and just wanted to rest his head on a singer named Anita Carter's lap. Elvis was very young, But the busy life on the road was causing him stress and making it hard for him to sleep. He didn't smoke or drink, but he didn't eat much either. People noticed this and wrote about it in newspapers. In 1956, Elvis bought his first house for himself and his parents in a nice part of Memphis. It was a big, new house with 4 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms. Before this, they had moved a lot, even when Elvis was a child in Tupelo. Now, at the age of 21, Elvis gave his parents a stable home, which was his main goal. He kept his promise. When Elvis was very young, he told his mom that when he grew up, he would buy her a big house and 2 cars. He always talked about what he would do for his family. As he became successful, he bought his parents nice things and wanted them to live with him. Even though he traveled a lot, his family stayed close. His mom, Gladys, was worried about him because his fans were getting too aggressive and dangerous. Some people even said that going to see Elvis could be dangerous. The Colonel, a manager, was surprised by how different some girls who liked Elvis were becoming. Elvis tried to make his mom feel better by calling her often, and she said he did so every other night. In August 1956, Elvis performed a lot of shows in Florida with his girlfriend June Wanico. They had 3 shows a day, which was very tiring for Elvis. June noticed that he was very tired and worried he might collapse from exhaustion. After the tour ended, she was glad it was over because Elvis couldn't have done another show. This pattern of exhaustion after tours continued for Elvis in later years. Elvis acted in his first movie, Love Me Tender, in California. He was paid a lot of money for it, more than his family could have ever imagined. He wanted to be a serious actor, but he was disappointed when he found out he would be a singing cowboy and not allowed to sing in the film. He felt like he wanted to be more like James Dean or Tony Curtis. But his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, said they needed to make money, so they went along with it. As Elvis became a more creative entertainer, he sometimes disagreed with what was expected of him, because he also wanted to take care of his family. The people making the movie didn't see him as a dramatic actor, they saw him as Elvis Presley, the #1 Elvis Presley. Elvis became friends with actors Nick Adams and Natalie Wood, who were also friends with James Dean. Nick Adams was surprised by how nice Elvis was. Elvis knew a lot of people on the movie set, like the police officer at the entrance, and he would say hello to everyone, no matter their job. He treated everyone with respect, calling them sir, and showing he cared about them and their roles. People who worked with Elvis said he was the nicest and most humble person they'd ever met. He was always kind to everyone, no matter if they were famous or not. Elvis knew what it was like to not have much, and his parents taught him to be respectful. He didn't want to be like James Dean, who could be distant and cold. When his first movie, Love Me Tender, came out, it was a big deal. More copies of this movie were made than for any other movie at that time. 20th Century Fox made 575 copies of Love Me Tender, which was a lot. On September 9th, while filming, Elvis appeared on a show called The Ed Sullivan Show for the first time. People were surprised because the show's host, Ed Sullivan, didn't like Elvis and thought he was not suitable for family TV. But Elvis's popularity grew, and he performed on the show 3 times for a lot of money. Over 60 million people watched his first performance, which was a huge number. He sang a song called Love Me Tender that became very popular even before it was officially released. It was the first single to go gold. After his TV appearance, many people wanted to buy the song, and it became a big hit. Elvis was the first artist to hold the top 2 spots on the music charts at the same time. Everything happened very fast for Elvis, and it was new territory for the people working with him. Elvis was unique, and sometimes people were scared of that just as much as they were excited. In the 1950s, many people in America were worried. They talked a lot about how Elvis moved while performing, giving him the nickname Elvis the Pelvis. He didn't like this name, but he couldn't change it. The police even told him to stop making his shows so sexy. Thousands of teenagers would scream when he danced a certain way. One newspaper compared his performances to the rallies the Nazis had for Hitler. People had strong feelings about Elvis. Elvis, a poor kid from the South, knew he was having fun and enjoying life like other young people. He liked going to the movies, swimming, and hanging out with friends. They would drive around, laugh, and have a good time. He would also go to drive-ins, drink sodas, and maybe take a girl home for a goodnight kiss. Even though he was famous, He believed there was a God watching him and everything he did.